um, since the committee's all here and it's 8:01 a.m., I think we can get started. So let's see, I had our agenda up in front of me before, and it is, yes. So first we have the minutes of October 1st. And I think has everyone had a chance to look over the minutes?
Yeah. They look fine to me. I move their acceptance.
I second that.
All right, well, I think then we are ready for a vote. I'll do it on the order on my screen. Walter?
Aye.
Aye. Brian is an aye. Okay. Nancy?
Aye.
Yeah. Jay?
Aye.
And Bill?
Aye.
Okay, that is a unanimous vote, and the minutes of October 1st are accepted. So second order of business, the search for new members. I was hoping to have a new member here right now. But yes, well, I had contacted a potential new member. We had a green card, and we'll see.
I've got a little report to make, which is
yes.
We have a nomination for Farana Sheets, who will be on our agenda on Monday for the next select board meeting. And assuming that proceeds without incident, we will then proceed with the nomination on November 8th. So you would have a new member on November 8th.
Great.
And we're still in the hunt for additional members. Now, I did want to also, on the related point, ask whether, and maybe this has been addressed before, there would be any desire to change this number of members of the board to perhaps 5.
Yeah, it might be a little bit easier to staff ourselves if we had.
That was a question that I had. So I'd be certainly willing to take that to the select board to amend the charge with the number of members. You know, there's sort of pros and cons to doing that. Of course, that, you know, the more members you have, the more potential sources of input and influence you could have. But also the easier it is, I think, to bring together a quorum for a meeting. So
Is the wording no less than 5?
Sorry?
Is the wording no less than 5 or no more than 5?
Well, I think that we have kind of moved away from that kind of wording because it creates ambiguities about what constitutes a quorum. So I think we just make a certain number of members because the Attorney General doesn't really accept, you know, I mean, you could have more members in theory, but, you know, it doesn't affect well, it doesn't affect your quorum. I don't think that it works to do it. Yeah.
I suppose if we decided that if we did find more members, it would be possible at the same time that we put in a nomination for members to request the select board to increase the size of the committee to make room for them.
We could also do that, but I think that we don't want to just constantly change the size. I mean, if you really do feel that 7 is the appropriate size, you know, we should just keep looking. But my sense is that even with Farana, that you still have one more opening, even if you had 5 members.
Is that true?
Yeah, we've not had the full number for a long time.
No, yes, and you know, the other thing that's on my mind is I just look at this group of people and just the talent that's here and the experience, and I just think of the opportunities, you know, coming up in this next year for you all to engage in other ways in the town. And so I want to give you all that opportunity too. You know, so that's the other thing that's really on my mind. So it comes back to this question: do we want to change the number of members on the committee, or have it stand pat for now?
Yeah,
Matt, I like to jump in and say this. In one sense, we haven't decided. I can't remember who. If we change to 5, right?
Yes.
One of us has to go. And I don't think we know who that person is because there's at least three of us who,
Yeah,
whose term is up, right?
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it comes down to, if there's more than one of you who wants to leave, then you could draw straws and see who's the lucky winner.
So so by leaving it to 7 for now, it allows us to work out that problem among ourselves as to who's going to be stepping off.
Okay,
See what I'm saying?
but I mean, in the meantime, we should still be recruiting members.
Oh, yeah.
This issue will come up,
Oh,
if we
it's
find another
coming, it's
member, this
coming.
will be a point,
Right.
Matt, would you tell us the name of that woman again? Who's going to be?
Piranha Sheets. I can give you the spelling. It is Farhanah, and then sheets, like sheets
Yes.
on a bed,
Okay,
Huh.
thank you.
from 69 Riverside Ave.
Okay. And what has her past experience been?
Let's see. I've been looking at so many volunteer cards.
She is actually new to town, so she does not have prior committee experience here.
Huh.
But she is she has work experience.
What kind, David? Do you recall?
She's a product manager,
Product manager.
Microsoft.
Does she have an alarm clock?
That's what I'm wondering. I've experienced this problem too. It's if you're not used to the 8 a.m. Meeting time, it takes a bit of adjustment.
Hey, it's not the earliest meetings I attend. That's for sure.
No, well, we used to have the well, sure. I know. I mean, for one thing, I think the committee chair breakfast used to be 7:30.
Yep.
Yeah,
I think I've seen earlier.
The light board's always 7:30. Yep.
Yeah.
And the middle school building committee.
Yeah, I can't remember if I've seen a 7 a.m. But
When I was on the high school building committee, we were very smart. We met at 5:30 in the afternoon. So.
Well, it's especially tough in middle school when they start at 7:30, they go to 11 sometimes. That
Ooh.
is a
Oh,
killer.
oh.
Ooh.
All right, but anyway, we're getting off subject.
yeah, so actually the yeah, so I think the actually the search for new members, I think part of the thing with the size of the committee, it's going to depend on on how we pursue our charter from here. If we were just if the charter were just to shepherd this to track the progress of this bill in the legislature, then my gosh, we don't even need 5 people to do that.
Right.
But the question of whether we need the committee at all, the select board could do that job. But but if we're going to start looking for other ways that we can do things, then it seems like we would want to look at more than one thing at the same time. And the more people we have, the more things we can look at. So
Yep.
The balance.
well, our mission does not actually say that we are working on the exemption. Says nothing about that.
That's right.
Our
Exemption.
mission is, it did in the very beginning. In the very beginning, we were looking for a local option, local income tax. And that was our bit there. That was our mission, but it's no longer that because that didn't work. So, well, it could work if we wanted to
Yeah, I mean, I
pursue
think-
it. But
Yeah, I mean, I
that
think technically-
requires a constitutional amendment. So, All right, so anyway, what it says now is, let's see, we provide a thoughtful and public examination of the issues surrounding local taxation, including fair allocation of the property tax burdens, potential alternatives to the property tax, and the loss of economic diversity resulting from reliance on the residential property tax.
It was that charge, that specific charge, that thundered this committee. I was then on the finance committee while this was all going on. That thundered this committee into the local option, local income tax. And you could see how that fit perfectly in the charge. It was an opportunity to try and find an alternative to, as Janie McIntyre put it, the 17th century taxation tradition. But whether the select board or we have the stomach to take on a constitutional amendment to see if we can push that through is the question.
And yes, we wouldn't necessarily be the ones to really push that. I mean, there would have to be other people or organizations that are having that, working on the same thing to make it work.
I think that, I mean, this discussion was basically, should we reduce the size? And I think the general feeling is no, not at this moment. Let's get a new member. Let's try for 2 new members and carry on with the very ambitious agenda, which Nancy just read, and see where it goes. And we can still function with a less than full membership, so which we've been doing.
Yes.
So we're not hamstrung by that. I mean, if we drop down to 2 or 3, we're still a committee, I guess. Matt, is there any minimum number at which point we cease to?
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Your current number of 7 on the charter, you need 4 people to meet. And then if you had 5 on your charter as total members, you'd need 3 to meet. I mean, there is an instance like the ZBA of 3 members, but that's becoming less of a committee.
Well, I think we probably got 4 diehards.
Yeah, we're pretty, I mean, we get 6 actually pretty reliably. Sometimes one person has to step out. So like,
yeah, then I think you're probably okay for now.
I think so.
Again, I had really 2 concerns around it. The one was quorum. It sounds like it's not a concern. The other is really just about, if people were feeling tired and they wanted to go and work on something else, you've served your term, so you have total right to want to go work on something else if you wished. And if that's not the case, then we can take our time and find the new members as time goes by here.
I mean, I would put a third thing on the list, which is I think the well, the charge of the committee doesn't change. I think our modus operandi has to change. We're winding down this activity, and we're going to have to take on very new ones, which I think are going to be quite different.
Yeah.
It may be I see it's going into a study period actually.
Yeah.
We're actually searching for the next big thing, or the next multiple big things if there are. We find more than one. It's going to be a big change of pace.
That's right.
Maybe some of us who were hoping we'd get fired.
Yeah.
We don't
Well,
have
I
to.
do want to note that we do still have openings on the Concord 2025 Executive Committee, the Municipal Affordable Housing Trust, the Council on Aging, the Natural Resources Commission, Public Ceremonies and Celebrations, the Tax Fairness, of course, and the Transportation Advisory Committee. So I'm just saying, we are still looking for talent out there.
Matt, is it a town law or just a custom that you can only serve on one committee?
So
Yeah.
we are looking at that. We had a discussion, actually a lengthy discussion on Monday at our last meeting about streamlining the committee process. We have over 60 standing committees, task forces, and boards. And so while on the one hand that shows participatory democracy, it's fantastic. Okay. On the other hand, it's really complicated to try to manage. So we looked across the full set, tried to see whether there were opportunities for consolidation, and actually found relatively little that is out there that's obvious. So one of the other things we looked at was our App 10 policy, which does say that, you know, members can only serve on one board or committee. So what we're going to do is relax that just ever so slightly, and say that essentially there are already criteria for a member to serve on more than one board, and they're pretty clear, you know, and also to stay beyond one term. So, but we're not going to just say, hey, you know, just join as many committees as you like. I think that what we're going to do is have a select board review of anybody that does want to serve on two, and you know, it's not going to be a formal thing. It's just going to be okay, that makes sense. So, you know, for example, being on let's say the executive committee in tax fairness, that's no conflict there. But if, you know, you're on the planning board, we probably don't want you to also be on the ZBA, you know, that right. Also just the level of work plus just the potential conflicts. So
yep.
Matt, there is a tradition, because I actually did it, that allows you to serve on a committee as we are. But if there's an ad hoc committee that jumps up, you're permitted to serve on that. So for instance, there was a committee that jumped up to figure out how to finance the thing that's being built behind the prison for low income you know, housing, and I was tapped to be on that, and so I could serve that. Then that committee went away after it did its work. So there is that dual service.
And the executive committee is an example of that, where the charge itself identifies that it's exempt from the membership, you know, restrictions of App 10. So we do that. I mean, yeah, as you mentioned, it's typically a task force. Now the 2025 is going to be going for quite some time, but it will eventually go away. And we do expect that there will be a large number of people when we start forming subcommittees on that, as you know, things ramp up. So
now, I've already been volunteered, as it were, for the 2025. I didn't think there was any problem.
No, there isn't. Again, for that one, there isn't.
And the other point, of course, is that sometimes, as in the 2025, you like to have liaison with all the other committees, which the best way to do that is to have people on those committees. So, which you know, so that's done deal.
Jay, you and I'm going to out you, Jay. You and I are on two committees together. The Trails Committee, but I think that's a subset of the.
That's a subcommittee.
It's a subcommittee of the NRC. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. My aspiration is to, when I get done with select board, to qualify to join the Trails Committee.
Great committee, Mark.
I'm not sure if I will qualify, but I'm going to try.
What's next, David?
Okay, well, let's see. Well, we can discuss the status of the exemption, which I keep this on the agenda because we might learn something new. I have not learned anything new since last time.
I checked as well with the legislation, at least not by phone call, but by email this time. Nothing's changed. It's still reported out affirmatively from what I understand from the revenue, the Joint Committee on the Revenue, but I don't know what happens after that.
Yeah, I'm curious. It's actually puzzling that the website doesn't doesn't even give that information. It only gives the fact that we had a hearing back in what was it, July, right?
July. No, it does. I think it does. There's another page. I can't remember what page it was, but it was a different page. And at least it said reported positive. That's all it said.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, because I just have to look further next time I'm on that page. All right. Well, and actually, Matt, since you're here, does the select board have any updates on this or any of the other home rule
Well, I
petitions?
wanted to mention there is motion on one of the legislative initiatives that we have, which is on the transfer tax. So, and in fact, we're writing a letter of support because now there is a bill that has a fair amount of support, and it looks like, you know, there is a chance that it may actually go. I don't think it was the specific one that we sponsored, but it is another one that has similar objectives. And so, you know, it does show that eventually some things can move.
Mhm.
It's just that they don't all move at the same time. And, you know, and it does take a coalition to make it happen. I mean, I think that putting in our petition is one kind of nudge in that direction, but it takes more than just that nudge, right? It takes, you know, 15 towns and, you know, a motivated legislator and, you know, all of that.
Yeah.
Now, you know that there is this wealth tax ballot measure in Massachusetts that it apparently is coming before the public next year.
No.
So
Oh,
I'm
that's
just
actually
seeing
good to hear.
this. So it's, let's see. 4% additional tax on income in excess of $1 million. Of course, that would be state. That
Oh, yeah.
doesn't come to us. We don't want that one.
No.
Well, how are they going to get that past the constitutional thing?
Well, so it's a constitutional amendment, right? And then there'd be a state ballot measure next year.
Okay, so so that would be a constitutional amendment.
Yeah.
Going for one constitutional amendment, let's get two.
Yeah.
Well, the argument against our constitutional amendment was that it would be wonderful for Concord, but it might not be quite so wonderful for Lowell or Lawrence or towns like that. So it's stacking the deck in favor of the wealthy towns.
Actually, the model that we were copying, which said that towns have the choice between what they call the cherry sheets and the local tax. And the way it's run in other states, in fact, is that people who opt out and want to stick with the cherry sheets, they get the money back from the state. And so it does not hurt the poorer towns. And I mean, you know, this is done in, I don't know, 5 or 10 states already, and it's a good system. People like it. For
Yeah.
Concord, it would mean keeping the money in Concord, but giving up state funding, and the town would like that, and that increases the size of the pool available to the poorer towns. So we argued all this stuff out before, and we just came to grief on the requirements supposedly for a constitutional amendment. And the constitutional amendment the Constitution only provides that taxes are levied basically by the state, and thus requires state blessing. Even our property tax has to be blessed by the state. So to allow a town to tax itself for town purposes is a new idea, and sort of not consistent with something which goes back to 16 whatever.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that our objective here is not to raise lots more money. It's really to just distribute the raising of the money more fairly in a town like ours, you know?
Yeah.
Well, Matt, if Lola had gone through, the effect would have been, it would not have affected Proposition 2.5 and any of that stuff. And the effect would have been to cut everybody's property tax in half. And yet have the same amount of money available to the town for its services. People were afraid when we first proposed it that this would be seen as a honey hole and the town could go sort of berserk spending all this money to do crazy
Yeah,
things.
yeah, no, it's not
But-
trying to make more money.
Well,
Yeah,
exactly. And that's the one place where 2.5 was helpful, because that allows us to put our thing forward and say, just relax, everybody, relax, there's control.
Could we circulate that proposal among us? I wasn't on the committee then, to see what it looked like, the one that we had at that point. Do we have it
Yep.
somewhere?
We
Yeah.
can do that.
Yeah, we have it.
That would be great. That would be a point of discussion, I would think, at one of our upcoming meetings, to look at it again and see, whether we think it has legs. The only thing that stopped it, as I understand it, was the state constitution. But I mean, but there was no internal conflict for us as a committee, or we don't know. We hadn't put it before. I don't know. Did we bring it to the board at some point? The select
We
board?
brought it to the town.
I've forgotten that.
It
That's
was
really, I remember
twice,
that now.
it was twice declared unconstitutional by the state Supreme Court.
Ah.
On our
And
specific thing.
until there is some change in the basic law, I think we're not going to get ahead on that.
So Jay, it would require us to put this forward as Ryan has been saying, a constitutional amendment rather than as a local bylaw.
That's right, but we have to keep
You
in
need the
mind,
constitutional amendment first, and then you could file what we had
Correct.
done previously, which is now a number of years ago.
Yeah, so if I understand it, well, no, actually I don't. I guess no, I guess I don't understand it. What exactly the constitutional objection was, and if
That local, that local communities cannot, excuse me, cannot have their own taxes.
I thought that the objection was that you would. Okay, so that's one objection. My understanding though was that the thing was still administered through the state. So the other problem was that you could have someone in one community paying a higher rate of tax on their income than somebody in another community.
yeah,
And
well,
that
that's, yes, David, and I think that's correct.
Yeah.
But the part of the state constitution, or whatever, says that any tax levied by the general court shall be the same for the same class of
Right.
whatever it is that's taxed across the Commonwealth. But the interesting thing is that it's not what's simply written in the Constitution. It's decades or century, whatever it is, of interpretation, and that's what has established what the meaning of, as with the U.S. Constitution, what the meaning of the words in the Constitution are. So,
right.
but I think that the fundamental thing that we need to recognize and we don't remind ourselves of enough is that there's a constitutional convention in the state of Massachusetts about every 2 or 3 years. Okay, it's not as if this was a thing that was held once a century or some other stuff like that.
No, it's a regular happening with the.
Absolutely a regular happening.
Mhm.
And there's nothing that's, if you don't keep trying, you don't get there. So it needs to get in front of the next constitutional convention. And then if it doesn't work, find out what people don't like and diddle with it. But the fundamental principle was to, as I think Denny McIntyre once put it so aptly,
Yeah.
we have a tax structure that in the town that's based upon colonial estimations of value, where the size of your farm said how rich you were, and that's that's been replaced. And so now it's become the size of your house in effect, or something like that. But anyway, it's, the whole point is that it's unrelated to ability to pay, and so, you know, you'll also notice that we have a fixed rate of state income tax as opposed to a graduated state income tax, which was apparently a third rail for some people. So then we've got death by 1,000 bites here. You know, transfer taxes and, you know, this kind of tax. Then we do tax exporting. We're gonna get it from anybody who wants to stay in a hotel. And, you know, we keep diddling around with it instead of taxing the people who got mountains of income and lots of ability to pay. And the, you know, so enough said. I'll mute myself here.
Well, the 21st century version of the property tax would just have you send in some percentage of your brokerage account each year. That would be a wealth tax in current terms. But anyway, we're very, very, very far away from that kind of thing. So I guess it comes back to what's the best path, and maybe it needs a little bit more, as Bill was saying, you know, fresh discussion, start back at the beginning and what was proposed, and see what new initiatives could be brought forward.
I'll pitch back in again. Walter and I started this discussion before other people had arrived. Walter was saying, isn't it wonderful what fusion energy is all over the newspaper and everything else? I started working on that aggressively, putting my life into it when I had dark colored hair. And it's now been 12, 13 years. All right, but it's there. So we need some dark colored hair people or hairy people overall on this committee who can hang in here, and it'll take us another decade to get this thing through the Constitution and get a better system. And let's, you know, you got to get
that's what we're trying to do. Yep.
But we need a legislator who really would work on that. You know, I think that, well, Tammy is running for governor, so that as a lieutenant governor. And Mike is doing a whole lot of other things. So I don't know who a good legislator would be to get that's going. The other one was the one from Lexington who has resigned. So we don't have a person who can help us.
Yeah, well, soon enough, apparently we'll have two legislators in the House.
Well, let's just start by reviewing what was put up a couple of years ago.
Okay.
And then we can worry about the legislature, talking to the board, talking to the town, etc. But let's look and see what we had and see how we would tweak it ourselves.
Mhm.
And then go forward from there.
Yeah, but I love the idea of recirculating the charge, Nancy. If you could do that, that would be great.
Yeah, sure thing.
We should also get the legislator from Lexington, who's now not doing it anymore, and let's get him to come around and talk to us, and let's strategize with people who understand the legislature and the process, and we're interested in tax policy, and let's get some other folks in here. It doesn't have to be just the town.
Yeah.
That won't let people who aren't residents in town vote, but that's all right. We'll still talk to them. Boy, that idea sure shut people up.
Well, I think eventually that's where we should go.
No, who was the legislator? Was that Jay Kaufman?
Yes.
I mean, he was a dynamo when he was there. It's
Yeah.
not a terrible idea to invite him to come talk to us. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, good idea.
I move we invite him to our next meeting.
Okay.
I didn't get a second.
So
No,
that's-
because I'd like to review it. I'd like to see the proposal first. I'd like to see
Yeah,
what
I
was
think-
written before.
Yeah, I think I'd like to circulate these things among us a little bit more. I think it's a great idea to bring him in. I think I'd like to bring him in when we have something to exchange with him, as opposed to being a one-way thing. And I think looking at the reviewing and reviewing the Lowly proposal would be a good start.
And I think within the following meeting, I can imagine inviting him in. But I think it would be good for us to get this thing reviewed.
Yeah. By the way, one of the reasons we're meeting today, maybe this is we should actually move on to this. The last item on our agenda here. Discussing the Envision Concord plan, where as I pointed out last time, I think we were mentioned once in the context of review business and industrial bylaw, particularly encouraging diversification of the tax base to ease the burden on residential taxpayers. Which sounds to me like, and thinking over that, I think that it sounds to me like that's encourage the building of more commercial property so that we'd have a larger commercial base.
Yeah, I personally, I don't like that. I mean, I know that a lot of towns, when I used to get involved in urban planning, that's what they would think. It was a short-term gain and a long-term loss, because then you have to service these commercial and business properties as well. That's my opinion. But I don't think it's really part of the charge of this committee to be doing that anyway. I think I think they just added us on as you know.
They looked at our mission and they thought, oh, it's very general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, logically, one option for taking off the burden from the residential tax base is to put it on the commercial base. The town tried that at one point. I'm trying to remember. I'm not. I think it was back in the 90s.
Yeah, I think that they'd love to find somebody to put that on.
Yeah, I mean, I think the town tried that back in the 90s, and it was not very successful. It was very unpopular with the commercial tax base, and it did very little for the residential.
And we don't have enough. We don't have enough commercial anyway. So
Yeah, because we don't. Yeah, right. I mean, we have so little. We have so little commercial that it's and in fact it's shrinking, I think.
I did point out that if we had a major coal-fired power plant in the town, it would lower everybody's taxes hugely.
That's right.
Or a big
You're a sick man.
nuclear plant, you know?
Yeah. Anyway, I mean, I think I think there are towns near us that have a much larger commercial base than we do. Lexington, I think, is probably the most comparable, but they've got a very different configuration there. I don't know.
Well, we have to let the select board know of what we're going to do about that. Matt, do you understand? I mean, you see how this doesn't seem to be our interest or our mission exactly. What do you think? We have to let you know something about this.
Yeah, I
Matt?
think, try to respond to the item that's there, but then I think more importantly is talk about what it is that you have done and what you intend to do. I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, so I think what we have done is we have, well, at this point, almost done. For the past several years, we've been able to successfully shift the tax away from the burden of the tax away from away from the class of taxpayer for whom it was the most burdensome, or a class for whom it was the most burdensome.
I mean, with
We
the
haven't-
exemption.
with, by means of the exemption. Now I'm not sure that we haven't solved everybody's problems with this. There are people who are under 65, for example, who don't qualify for this because of age, and perhaps this is an issue for them too. So
Why, what could we do? Could we do?
we've taken a chip away at the problem.
Could we change, could we do it could we remove age 65 and make it possible for any age?
I think that's so one of the things I'm thinking is we should propose, we're going to investigate taking it, what would be the consequences of removing the age 65 requirement, or maybe some other requirements in the in what we have, because we didn't come into this. I'm not sure that we got this thing pretty much inherited almost whole from Sudbury in the first place. I'm not sure that our
Yeah.
motivations were the same as theirs.
Mhm.
And so maybe we prematurely took all of their
Oh, yeah.
details. We could look. We can revisit the local option income tax. I think we're planning to at least re-examine that. We may conclude that it's still something we can't pursue, but we're going to examine it, right? And maybe we should look into some other. Okay, so let's at least think about, well, what would be the potential costs and benefits of making significant changes. I mean, changes in zoning. Well, that may be necessary, but not even sufficient to get business in town. What if it succeeded, what would be the results?
See,
Or
I
likely
think
results?
I think this is a very specific thing, talking about land use in the envisioned Concord. I don't think this is an area that we have any expertise or any in this whatsoever.
Yeah, I
think
don't.
we say that.
Exactly. I know. I agree. I don't think.
I think you
we
should
have
just
anything to
you should
about
just say
zoning.
that. Just say
Yeah.
it's not.
Just say that,
not the right-
period, done,
Yeah.
get it off our plate. It's not
Right.
our area.
I think that's totally reasonable.
Yeah.
So do we need a motion to decline?
Yes, I'll make a motion that we respond to this to whoever has to be responded to. I'm not sure who that is.
Select board.
Okay, the select board, that we don't believe that our committee has the ability or aligns itself. I'm talking too much here. We don't want to do this. We don't want to do this, period. You can figure out what I'm saying. It's not our area of responsibility.
Yes.
That's the way to put it. It is not our area of responsibility.
Yeah.
That's
So
perfect.
then I think the thing is back to mention that, and then what is it you have done? And then, that's aligned with town goals. And
We
then
will
what do you
continue,
plan
we
to
will
do?
continue to work to pursue the legislation for the home rule petition. And we will investigate the local option income tax.
I don't think we have to.
And what have we done? We in fact got through the town and through the legislature,
Right.
3 years of tax relief for a certain class of citizens.
Yeah,
Sure.
Now,
don't
and that's no small accomplishment.
small
And-
thing.
and-
Yeah.
And what's frustrating is that what should have just been a reaffirmation of that somehow or other hasn't happened. What I would advocate is that we continue to push hard to get the thing that we have in front of the legislature now. And when we get that passed, which I think we will, then we can look at the question of whether we want an amendment to that later on or a resubmission to do away with the 65 criteria.
Good point.
But I'd be very careful to take that in steps, because we
Yeah.
could foul the nest really badly if we go off half-cocked.
I think that a simple no, thank you will be enough. Because I think to get into all this other discussion simply opens it up. There's a famous dictum that says, once they begin to negotiate, neither a castle nor a maiden is safe.
Well, I don't think it's a question of
So the,
negotiation.
ahead.
I don't think it's a question of negotiation. Yes, no, thank you, we're not going to do that. But we're also tasked with saying what we have done, and we've done
Yeah.
some stuff.
So the motion of Bill, your motion.
I don't know what it is anymore. I
You know
essentially-
what I would suggest when I've seen other committees on this is that since I think gotten enough discussion and there seems to be consensus in the room, the motion should be to designate a member to respond.
Good thought.
Perfect.
Well, and Bill, since you, I think, have the the idea of
It's gonna be pretty short. It's gonna end up
You
very close. to the
propose and
line.
disposes.
I think brevity is probably a good quality
It's a
here.
good thing, by the way. I don't want paragraphs. By the way, I'm going to be consolidating this content, so
All right, good.
one-liners are great. I
Great,
prefer 'em.
okay. All right, I'll write something up.
The committee voted no action on such a proposal.
So let me just run that. So I had actually Bill had a motion to submit this. Did anyone second it? I didn't see it. I don't.
I will.
Okay, I'll take it. So I have a second. So I have a motion from Bill, a second from Walter. Are we ready to?
What was it? What it was that motion? I didn't need to
Right.
write it down.
Bill, could you repeat the?
Let's say that we decline to review the business and industrial bylaws because it is not our areas of competence or responsibility.
Oh, yeah, competence and
I
responsibility.
agree on that.
Okay.
Okay.
But also to designate Bill to write the thing, the response from the committee.
Thanks a lot, Matt.
Okay. So I'll just make sure that Nancy has the motion, and then we can start taking a vote.
Okay,
Okay. So let's take a same order as before. Walter.
Aye.
Okay, I vote aye. Ryan. It's an aye from Ryan. Nancy.
I,
Aye from Nancy. Jay.
Yes,
Aye from Jay. And Bill.
Yes,
Okay, so we have a unanimous vote, and Bill, you're you're charged with writing that up now.
okay.
All right. Well, I don't know. I think then that pretty much concludes our business. I mean, we could have a go back to something else if someone has something to add to it, but
We did have something. Nancy, if somebody was going to get the people the original proposal.
Right.
and
Yeah,
to
will
adopt.
do, will
So
do.
that's an action item that we ought to have, and
the town meeting twice supported what we proposed.
Yes,
And so it's there.
yeah.
Well, we just got to remind, we got new members, and we got ideally another new member, so Bill hasn't seen it, so.
Yeah, I'm sure I saw the town meeting, Brian, but you're right. It's been a while. And if we could review it together at our next meeting, that would be really good, I think.
yeah, I my experience I think is the same as Bill's. It's all transpired before I was on the committee, so.
We
Mhm.
also pointed out what other states had that was identical essentially to our proposal, because we basically were copying what other states had already done. This was not an invention of this committee or of this town. So, and works well other places. So I think it's worth revisiting that. And the other half of that is, Nancy, you may have in the materials a brochure that I put together, which was
Yeah,
a statewide group that never happened, but it was a fantasy of mine, called Citizens for Fair Taxation, which we had a brochure
yeah,
made. And one thing that this committee had never done really was to try to develop allies in other communities. I don't know, Matt, where that stands in terms of the way the selectmen would view it. That where the committee says, wait a minute, we need to be part of a statewide effort. But you know, what was the a lady up north someplace who called, she called her kitchen the headquarters of some sort of no tax committee and had all sorts of press and everything else. And nobody dared to cross her because, she would make a lot of noise from her kitchen. And but she was very effective, and we need to take a lesson there.
I think yeah, that's a great point. And I think that's where Jay Kaufman in the future could be very helpful to us because he understands coalitions.
Yeah.
In fact, I think Jay did come to a committee meeting of ours once upon a time.
Way
Yeah,
back in the dark ages, yeah.
Yep.
But the T word was anathema to Corey Atkins. She wouldn't touch anything that had the T word in it.
Huh.
And, she really wouldn't. And maybe it's still anathema on the Hill.
I have to leave at 9 o'clock. So when
Yeah.
shall we have our next meeting?
Yeah. All right, well, let's see. Well, let's go for a little bit. I think let's give ourselves a little bit more of a
Our calendar there.
gap this time. It's been 3 weeks since our last meeting. Let's maybe go for 4 this time. How are people 4 weeks from now? What is 4 weeks from now?
Thanksgiving. I mean,
Oh, that would not be good.
That would be the 19th. Wouldn't that be the 9th? 1, 2, 3. It'd be the 19th, wouldn't it?
Yep, 19th November.
That would work.
And how does that?
Even better, it's a full moon.
Oh, for lunatics, that's home.
Yeah.
19th?
Yep.
Okay. Is that the week before Thanksgiving?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Good. Yes. Right. So we don't want to go. Yeah. Okay. So so 5 weeks is out of the question. Yeah. Let's do. Okay. Then November 19th.
Sounds good.
And for that meeting, I think I will put a review of the local
slowly.
income tax
Yes.
proposal on that agenda. And we'll have some materials to look over for that. Hoping we have a new member at that point. And let's see, what else?
Well, we'll continue to try and track what's happened to our thing in the legislature.
Yeah, I think our first 3 items on our agenda for today, our first 4 items are going to be pretty much our agendas for a while. I think those are just going to be standing agenda items until they get resolved. Well,
Okay.
we will always have minutes because Nancy is like clockwork, always has minutes and time for us for the next meeting.
God bless her.
Yes. And then the next 3 things are going to be standing there until we resolve them.
All right.
Okay. And then and we have a new item 5, and I'm not sure if we need any other items, but if anything comes up, people, just if you want anything on the agenda, let me know, because it's easy to add things if we do it in time. If it's 2 days, if it's like less than 3 or 4 days before the meeting, then it's too late. But okay.
Okay, and we
All right.
close.
Done?
yes, we are done. So I think was that a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Second.
Okay, well,
Okay.
everyone vote to adjourn by
Yes.
leaving the
Yes.
meeting, and we'll
Yeah,
see you
yeah.
all on November 19th.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.